Hi, you. It's me, Nicole, the Nick Star, and this is the Nick Star podcast. Today, I am talking about my menopause day, part two. In the previous episode, I talked about part one, funny that, and the preparation of the particular day where women have as a marker on their journey, where if they've been 12 months without menstruating, then that one day is medically defined as the day of menopause, and the day after is postmenopause. But in today's society, menopause is kind of a pretty big, broad term that people refer to as, the later stages of perimenopause that particular day and beyond. But in fact, it is just one day. So I just wanted to tell you a little bit about my day last week. I woke up and I was so thrilled. I know there was just this enchantment to the whole energy of the day, and I did my workout to balance my hormones, nourished myself, and then prepared to go and do my ceremony. I went to one of my favorite temples, which actually is near a river. Well, the river is below where the temple is, and I hadn't actually been into the river before, and I had the pull to do that. So I stopped and bought some offerings, and I arrived, and the guy that is at the temple entrance who takes the entry fee greeted me by name, by my Balinese name, and was very familiar with who I was. I was not familiar with him, but I spoke to him politely and responded to all his questions in Indonesian. It was a really sweet little encounter. He was very excited to see me. And I was like, what? Walking down towards the temple, quite perplexed by the whole thing, but felt it was a very sweet event. Anyway, so I went down and I sat in front of the first altar, and I had two Chinese New Year envelopes that Leo gave me, my son, and I had some paper, and I wrote this huge gratitude note to put in it as part of my offering. And I took time to reflect on, my journey out of that maiden era, which is, happens before you start menstruating, before you transition into the mother era, which for me lasted 38 years. So it's a pretty long piece of time in one's life timeline. It was almost to the day, actually. So I reflected back to the first time that I started bleeding, and, pregnancies, births, encounters, both joyful and horrendous. And all of the gifts of my perimenopause journey and to that moment of reaching the milestone. And I put it inside the little envelope, and I went and put my offerings on the altar with that, and then proceeded to go down to the river. And it was just so beautiful, so picturesque and idyllic, and just nature and flowing water, rocks. The river was really sandy underfoot and easy to walk into without any kind of weird underfoot experience. And I just immersed myself into the energy of the river and the purification blessing, and just literally bathed in this rite of passage that I was taking myself through. Eventually I came out of the river and collected my things and went and climbed the stairs into the top of the temple, and I sat there and wrote for the other envelope that I had, and I just wrote about stepping into my full wise woman era and integrating all the journey and all the learnings and all the lessons, and put that upon the altar. And unlike down on the other one, I had this urge to burn it, and so I placed it in between the incense, and it took fire, and I sat there and I watched it, and it was so beautiful. I could see the energy of Agni, which is the fire deity, in the flames, and at 2 times I saw Phoenix in the flames, and it was just incredibly special to witness. And then I closed my eyes to drop into a long, deep meditation. But that didn't occur. I closed my eyes and I just had this wave of these words that were, I am free, I am free, I am free. And I opened my eyes, and it was like they were forced to be open. I couldn't close them. And so I just sat there and kind of smiled really hard and was like, oh, okay, I guess this is what we're doing. And I just sat in awe of the whole thing. I then went down to where the small fountains are, gave an offering to the fountain and drank the holy water and received the blessing. And then eventually I walked up towards the car park, and you can either walk up towards the car park or return the way that you came. And today I decided to walk up, and there's kind of these old big rock stairs that continue up towards the car park, but there's been a new installation of more structured stairs on both sides of it. So I looked at the left side and I looked at the right side, and I was like, which side shall I walk up? And as someone who follows the path of non-duality, it felt like a huge separation. And so I walked up the center of the old pathway, which was these kind of boulders that were put there in the 15th century. And I walked up there and I just had this huge smile on my face. And I walked back to my bike, and he was there at the gate again. And he looked at me. I can't even recall what he said. And we kind of bowed to each other and hopped on my bike and left. And then on the way home, I stopped at the supermarket and got some groceries because, that's what you do when you're a solo mama and a householder in this lifetime. And I came home and Lau was waiting for me and asked everything that happened, and I shared that with him. And then we got changed and prepared to go out for our celebration dinner that he insisted on us going to. And so we went to our favourite little French bistro and had a beautiful celebratory dinner for my day of menopause. We took some time to talk about what it meant for me, and it was so fascinating watching a young 10-year-old boy who's been, highly educated and very present to my journey. And, I was 40 when I had him, so he has, in these last few years been in an age where he's been able to understand the cycles of menstruation and when things get chaotic and they aren't very predictable cycles and all of the symptoms that come with that. And it's so extraordinary to see someone that hasn't been exposed to any conditioning around shame or, any projection about women's business. And his perception is deeply honouring and deeply respectful. And observing him in that was so fascinating because, seeing that he hasn't been imprinted by any conditioning around any negativity towards wombs and menstruation and vaginas and all of that. It was a moment. I felt very proud and I felt very happy for him that this was our experience. And we had a beautiful night, and I thanked him greatly. And we came home and chilled out and went to sleep. And I woke up the next day and I felt different. And I wasn't sure what that different actually kind of was. Like, I was like, what is this? And so, I took some time later in the morning and I did a meditation set and I just sat with what was. And I realized that, this marker in time where you're done, you're officially completed your fertility era, and it's not very common that, you may have a baby in the kind of 5 years until the previous that time, but you're certainly in effect of it all. And I realized, for 38 years, you're either trying not to get pregnant or trying to get pregnant or going through pregnancy, or you are involved in the cycles, the monthly cycles of hormones and the experience of all of that. And then, you're in perimenopause where those cycles are very chaotic and all the symptoms, and you're at effect and you're dealing with that on some level every day. And from this day onwards, that's not part of my reality. And I know some people mourn that, and they feel sad that their fertility era is over, or, they kind of dismiss it because thank God that's done, and these kind of different experiences, duality. But for me, it was like, oh my gosh, like this is what it feels like to not have to have some aspect of awareness involved in this fertility era, where your womb and your eggs and, all the other bits and pieces are functioning in a way that affect you subtly or greatly or anywhere in between. And it felt like liberation. And I was like, that's what the freedom piece was about. There's this true sense of liberation that comes with being postmenopausal. I reflected at the end of the day, and I had this like full level of energy all day that I can't remember having for a really long time. Like I was so energized, and I did so much, and it was such a great day of satisfaction and accomplishment, and from the mundane to the joyous, like they were all experienced as the full expression of life. And yeah, I was like, okay, this is what it means when I felt different this morning. So yeah, that's my little story. That's what I wanted to share as my part 2 post-menopause day experience. So thank you so much for listening. I so appreciate it. And if there's anyone you think that needs to hear this, or you feel the pull to share and you're not sure why, please do so. And if you want to open a conversation about anything with me, you can do so through my website, www.nickstar.com, NIKSTARR. And yeah, that's all I got. I love you. Thank you. Bye.